Hey, how you doing? Good afternoon. Welcome to another time here, another time at the book club. So great to have you. Thanks for making it here with me this afternoon. So we've been doing a study through our book, The Good Life. This is a compilation of a study done at the Abbott School on adult development. And it's pretty much, it's a 85 plus years study, and pretty much looking for what makes for a good life, what makes for a healthy life, what makes for a happy life, what makes for a fulfilling life. And the answer comes out to be relationship. That's the answer. So going through the book is trying to see how that was arrived at and how we can optimally utilize the result. We can use relationship, our next relationship, exploit relationship, to live a good life, to live a healthy life, to live a quality life. That's what we have to do. So last week we started with reading chapter 3. We read the first part of chapter 3 last week, and the topic of chapter 3 is life or relationships on the winding road of life. Relationship on the winding road of life. The winding road of life, right? We have, first of all, we are children, then we become adults. Then we're talking here about adult development, right? Unlike as children, we have those cards we keep for children. We're measuring what they should be at 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, all of that. No one seems to take care of us as adults, monitoring where we should be, and that's what the study is all about. And it's just for the sake of studying, it's for the sake of being able to utilize that in our lives and have a better life, improve the quality of our life. That's what we're trying to get out of all of this. I'm going to bring up my slide here like I typically would do, and we'll go for it. Again, on Instagram Live, you're not going to be able to see my slide. But on Facebook and on YouTube, you'll be able to see my slide, but we'll make the best of what we have. All right, let me bring up my slide here. All right, I believe you all can see my slide on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. We're just going to enjoy seeing me talking. So it's a good book written by Robert Waldinger and Marc Schulz, and both of them are the lead at the Abbott School of Adult Development. And Toba is making it here today. So we'll see him once it gets fully logged on. We'll pretty much try to do a quick run through our schedule. So today we're doing a second read into chapter 3. I think we're probably going to have two more reads in chapter 3 to finish it up. Today we'll be talking about one of the studies in chapter 3, which is talking about adolescence. Then we'll talk about the young adults. Then we'll probably talk about, end of life. So I think we're probably going to have 2 more reads to close the chapter here in September, and we'll come back and with chapter 4 in October. Toba, how are you doing?
I'm good, fine. Happy Sunday, longest time, sir.
Yeah, happy Sunday. Good to have you. It's been a long while.
Yes. Thank God.
Yeah. Thank God. I'm happy and blessed to have you.
Yes, sir. Same here.
Great. Like you would have seen, we've been doing a study through this book, The Good Life. So that's what we've been reading. We're in chapter 3 right now. And the title of chapter 3 is looking at relationships on the winding road of life. It pretty much it's relationship in the adult life. That's what we're looking at in chapter 3 here. Any question on what you've seen so far on Facebook? So by any question on what you've seen on Facebook that you've not been a part of before I go on?
Nothing yet. Nothing.
Good. So, when we look at adult life, that we can look at it from 3 different angles in trying to understand that there are 3 different concepts which we can use to understand or look at adult life. We can either look at it based on the changes that take place, as we go through adult life. The brain, there are changes in the brain, there are changes in our body, there are changes in our hormonal composition, there are changes in our physical composition, there are changes in our emotional composition. All of those are pretty much internal. We can look at it from that angle, the changes that are taking place on the inside of us. We could also look at it based on the expectation of people and life itself. As we go through our adult life, we have various expectations. There's the age where you're expected to be able to fend for yourself. Some people will say, oh, at this age, you're supposed to be married. At that age, you're supposed to have moved into your own home. At this age, you're supposed to have a car. At this age, you're supposed to have had your children. Expectations of life. We could look at adult development from that angle. We could also look at adult development in terms of the interactions we have with every other person from a relationship angle, right? So those are three different ways we can look at life. As we'll do this study and look, we're probably going to have to be looking at it from all of these angles, because the changes that take place on the inside of us, expectations of us, all affect the way we interact with other people. And all of that then affect the quality of our life or the lack thereof. So we will be looking at it from those different angles. So our relationship with people affect us. They determine whether we're happy, not happy. It determines who we are. Right, those that go in seclusion amongst, can't really be said to have a personality, right? Because your personality is proved by your interaction with other people. You can say you are gentle, but if you've never been in a situation that will test your gentility, then you cannot really say you're gentle, right? You can say you're nice, but if you don't have any other person to show that niceness to, you can't really be said that you're nice. Our personality, our character is proven in our interaction with other people, right? Then that's when we truly can say we're this or that. It's proven in the stream of life, right? So our relationship, affects us in various ways, deep, shallow, ways that determine the quality of our life at the end of the day. Our essence is found in other people, not in ourselves. Everything that takes place on the inside of us is the intent that we can impact other people and allow them to impact us also. That is where life is. Life is not found in just being alone. Life is found in our interacting with other people. When we interact successfully, then we can then have a good quality life. When we don't interact successfully, then the quality of our life is deterred in one form or the other, and all we're trying to do in all this is talking about how to interact successfully. We're trying to understand the way to engage with all the different people, all the different relationships, all the different forms in our life, to the intent that we can have a good quality life. Because when we talk about relationship as determining, whether the quality of our life, it's not just the relationship, but the quality of the relationship. And the quality of that relationship is dependent on us, right? There are ways to make those relationships happy, quality relationship. Others will do their own, but we are responsible for our own life. We are the master of our fate. We are the master of our destiny, and we are the captain of our ship. We can direct our life the way we need or want our life to be directed, right? And pretty much when it comes to the good life, right, it has to do with growth and change. Growth and change. To be happy, you need to grow. Growth is an essential part of happiness, right? If someone is not growing, you will not be happy. Growth is an evidence of life, right? Life gives happiness, right? So if we're talking about having a good life, then there must be a positive element of growth, a positive element of change for the better, right? So, and also, yeah, so what we experience, what we endure, and what we do all affect the trajectory of our growth, right? Our interaction with other people, our interaction with the elements of this life also determine the trajectory of our growth, whether it's a fast growth, a slow growth, or no growth at all, So other people challenge and enrich us, So relationship does affect, the quality of our life. So for today, what we're going to be looking at, we're going to be focusing on one part of our life today, which is the adolescent part of life. Next week we'll look at the young adult part of life. Then probably upper week we'll look at the old adult part of life. So what we're going to focus on today is adolescence. Right? Are we together so far?
Yes.
Thanks, Pastor Fola Laide. Thanks. I see your wave. Thanks for coming on Instagram Live. Yeah. So we're going to focus on adolescence today, and I guess some of those you deal with adolescents as youth corpers. Some of them come to you as adolescents, but most of them come to you as young adults, right? So the book defines adolescence 12 to 19, but the World Health Organization defines adolescence from 10 to 19, right? That's the definition from the World Health Organization. Some people actually define it as 10 to 21. Some people define it as 10 to 25. The reason for 21 and 25 is because of the development of the brain. The brain, what we call the prefrontal cortex of the brain, it is not fully developed until mid-20 or late 20, right? So most people think it's about 25 plus minus is when it's fully developed. So even the World Health Organization defined young people as ranging up to 10 to 24, right? Even though they define adolescence itself as 10 to 19 years old. Do those numbers tally with you? Toba, do those numbers tally with you? Is that your understanding of adolescents and young people?
Yes.
Yeah. So pretty much, yeah. So even though adolescence starts from 10, girls typically mature or develop faster than boys. So girls start to develop a year or two before boys. So you have some girls already beginning to mature at the age of 9, right? And these days also a lot of those children with all the kind of food they eat today begin to show those adult features earlier than the average number. But you can find a girl at 9 years old already beginning to develop breast, right? So pretty much that's what adolescence represents, right? A time when children begin to develop adult features, right? Girls whose chest used to be plain start developing breast, men start developing, boys start developing beards or hair around their, private part, all of those, it's adolescence is taken from a Latin word adolescent, which just means to grow, to mature, right? So it's just a time when children begin to mature into adults, right? So adolescence is simply a transition from childhood to adulthood, right? So that's what adolescence is all about. And that time, there are a lot of things that go with maturing, a lot of hormonal flow in the body, chemicals in the body that, begins to make that life, probably a how do you put it now? Sometimes it's confusing. It's a confusing time for people because of all the chemicals that are taking place, the growth that's taking place, the changes that are taking place, the brain development, could be a challenging time for people. And if not managed well, that might be the time that someone loses their destiny, someone loses their future. The children tend to do things that could mar them, at this age, because of the changes that are taking place. If it's managed well, it will set them on the right trajectory for life. If not managed well, it could put them on the wrong trajectory for life. You were going to say something.
No, just corroborating what you were saying. I was just trying to know the agreement to what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. So even the adolescent life can be divided into three parts, right? There is what they call the early adolescence, mid adolescence, and late adolescence. You know, and early adolescence is just between that 10 years old to about 14 years old, and it's just that beginning spur of development. You know, a child is beginning to be introduced to adulthood, right? So it's that jerking of a start. You know, so it could be more, there'll be a lot of activity in the body, things that the child is not used to, you know, so that then becomes changes taking place. You know, the whole thing that happens during adolescence is also the part in the continuum of life. In the continuum of life, you have three steps in the continuum of life. You have a time when we get born as children and we're dependent, a time when we begin to gain independence, and a time when we are able then to go into interdependent relationships, right? So adolescence is a time when a child begins to break away from dependency, you know, and begins to want to go into a place of independency. You know, there's a lot of wanting to push away the things that the child used to either to have attachment to, right? We want to exert him or herself to say that I am a person, right? I am a person. I am a person, right? And that pretty much ties again to all of us. You know, sometimes we get so attached to children, we think we own children, but we don't own children. We don't own anybody. At the end of the day, we are all tied back to God. We all belong to God, right? When you have children, those children are pretty much just people that God has borrowed you for a certain period to help them grow. You don't own them. You don't own their destiny, right? At the end of the day, we're all equal before God. From a human standpoint, when it comes to humanity, there's no age, there's no gender, there's no tribe, there's no race. We're all just the same before God. We're just human. In our humanity, we're all equal. There's no male, there's no female, right? We're all equal. You know, there's no parent, there's no child. We're all just equal before God, right? So in adolescence, children want to then exert that independency, that they can stand alone on their own, right? Obviously, there's a balance to it. They think they can stand alone, but their mind is deceiving them that they can stand alone. But then as much as those features are being built in them, there are still a whole lot of grounds on which they need to depend on others. Right. So there's that confusion, that struggle between independence and dependency that's taking place in their life, you know, and that's why we have all of those challenges, struggles as they go through that period of life. Anything you want to add to that?
No.
No, all right, all right. So pretty much the early adolescence, the beginning of this setting is from about that 10 to 14, and the mid-adolescence is about 15 to 17, and 17 to either 19 or 21, you know, is late adolescence, you know, and different things take place within those periods. Obviously, when it's early adolescence, it's that onset of wanting to rebel, as it were, wanting to rebel against dependency and wanting to seemingly establish the independency, but they are not used to it at that point in time. It's an initial entrance into that struggle for independency, you know, so they struggle with a sense of identity. Throughout adolescence also, what the child, what that person, what that human is trying to do is to gain identity, gain a sense of being, gain a sense of self. Who am I? Right? A sense of self. You know, the word sense of self also is another word for self-esteem. So it's a time when that child, that person is building self-esteem, sense of self, right? That's what's going on through that. So if it's not managed well, you find them people who have a low sense of self. You know, what you get out of adolescence period will determine whether that child person would have a low or high sense of self, or what you might call self-esteem, right? So, but there's a struggle for identity. The child is asking, who am I? You know, what do I represent? You know, so there's a lot of that, you know, and none of us having gone through that period, we know what we encountered when we're going through it at our own point in time. There's that affinity towards friends because they are just trying to see which group do I belong to, who agrees with my spirit, who flows with the person on the inside that I am. There's a lot of questioning. So that time of wanting to have affinity to other people is to test the ground. There's an experimentation going on, even though it's not a structured experimentation, but there's a lot of question in their heart that they are seeking answers for. And if the parents don't rightly engage them, they are going to be seeking for that answer outside of the home, So, but all they're trying to look for is identity, right? And so they have questionings in their heart, So, but once they get that through the early adolescence and the mid-adolescence, it's more like a place where they are stabilizing, right? There's not as much rapid change as you get in the early adolescence. Things are beginning to stabilize in the change process in their body. They're beginning to get used to who they are, right? They're beginning to get used to those changes that have taken place inside of them, and they are beginning to get to a place of stability as an adult, as it were, and then pretty much going to the late adolescence is pretty much them exerting, there's a continuous, stability in those changes, but they're now growing from just adolescence, they're now going into a place of adulthood, right? So the whole essence of adolescence is going from being a child to being an adult. But we can break it in these 3 segments, which is an introduction to the process, is stabilizing in the process, and then going into adulthood, right? So and that's pretty much, and the things that come to bear as they do all of that is they are looking for identity. Who am I, right? They're trying to forge the path for themselves, going into adulthood. And for me, as I think about it, it's similar to women. Women go through a lot of, hormonal changes in their body as they go to their monthly cycle. There's a lot of hormones that tend to flow in their body more than will flow in a normal man. So women then, it affects their mood. It affects their composition. They feel a sense of detachment even from their body, as they go through those different hormonal flows in their body. And you can imagine that's the same thing an adolescence is going through, as they go through the period going into adulthood, going to a time when they start bedwetting and things like that. And if it's not managed well, they could go astray. I remember as I was growing, there were different myths and false stories pretty much to lead adolescents astray. Some people will say that if you don't, what was the thing they were saying then? The different funny stories, so that's why we need to guide our adolescents. We need to, teach them the things that they need, because they have a lot of questions in their heart, and we need to be cognizant of these questions and address them, because if we don't address them, they'll go and get answer outside, right? Are we together on that?
Yeah. Very sure.
Yeah. So they do go through physical changes, social, emotional, psychological changes. Their brain is developing, from a 7-year-old when the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that develops last, and it's that part of the brain that we use for reasoning, thinking, we use for problem solving, prioritizing. That part of the brain is developing through this adolescent period, and it's not fully developed until the mid-20s or late 20s. That's when you now say they're fully matured and ready for life, right? It's that time when the brain is fully developed. That part of the brain is there, but the prefrontal cortex, which they need for problem solving, and pretty much confronting the world, is developing and does not fully develop until the mid 20 or late 20. Most people say it's about 24, 25, when it's fully developed, So the issues around it's also a time for puberty, right? Coming to a time when all the sexual reproductive organ begin to show forth, mature, and the emotions also come to bear, and they're having questions around that. All right, so that affects the way we relate. They relate with other people at that time, a point in time. You can imagine, innocent relationship in childhood become no more innocent, right? So there are questions around relationship, touching one another, touching the opposite sex, begin to then get an electric shock that I didn't used to get. So those then needs to put in their right places, and aligned right, and not allowed to control the person, but rather to be used and aligned right. That's for the adolescents, and for we parents, and guidance is for us to understand all of this, to be able to help them, win in this time of life, So adolescents at this point in time, they're trying to figure out their own identity, or sense of self, like we said, and that could, and in doing that, it can come from experimentations, and they're experimenting things and finding the results of that. We're hoping that those experiments will not be on things that are not irreversible. That's why they need guidance. They need guidance, such that they don't do things that will leave a scar in their lives. So the questions that get to battle with are things like, what kind of a person am I becoming? Who do I want to be like? What do I want to be like, right? What do I want to do? Who do I want to be like? What should I do with my life? Am I proud of who I am, who I'm becoming? How much should I try to be like somebody I respect? If they have a celebrity they're wanting to be like, So all of those questions that go through, the adolescent as they grow. So they also ask questions on, how do I know if my friends really like me? They says, am I having intense sexual romantic feelings, and how to go about that? But these are things we all have felt. These are things we go through in the adolescent life, and it's up to us parents to help them as they go through this time of life, just like we have. Sometimes we don't imagine it, that they are going through that. Just looking at them, they still look like children, but all it takes is for us to imagine who we were at their age and the things that went through our mind. That would help us. Just looking at them, they're always going to look like children because they are children. But to help them is to put our imaginative cap on and remember who we were at their age, what were the things that went through our mind, and what kind of guidance we would have wanted when we were like them, what would we have wanted others to, or how would we have wanted others to relate with us at that age, and that would help, in aligning ourselves all right and helping them. One of the things I then saw about things we might focus on as we help them at this age, is to focus on competence, helping them gain competence, helping them gain confidence, helping them around character issues, helping them about relationship issues, connecting with other people, and the need to care. That would help them, to develop positively, have a purpose in life, have a hope and a well-being, especially mentally and otherwise. So rushing through that's pretty much all we have talking about adolescence, from this part of the book. I see Toba has dropped off, but key thing is to know, to help our adolescents as they go through this, as just remembering how we went through it. Most of us listening here we're adults, so this is not the part of life we'll probably be sharing and asking questions of one another, except we have something about our children they're going through. If there's any specific question, on that, feel free. We can share that and look at that. I have young adults, all my children are above 20 right now, but I've watched them through their years. I've gone through it myself, and we can share on anything you might have that we can use to help our children, So that's all I have. I'm not going to push this beyond now. So I'm going to call it quit here. Thanks for another time here, and we'll continue next week and look at the young adult, still on chapter 3 of the book. All right, thank you. Have a good one. God bless you. Have a great week ahead. Bye-bye.